January 19th, 2021, somewhere near Sundes Farm, Archer County, Texas. Cold front had rolled in from the north, and the wind carried that dry bite of winter across the open prairie. If you've never been to Texas in January, it's not the heat you'll remember, it's the silence. Tommy Lanes, Brandon Keats, and Mitchell Romero. 3 high school seniors from the nearby town of Southmore. Mitchell was the self-appointed ringleader, goofball, and YouTube hopeful, ran a fledgling channel called Mitchell Vlogs that hadn't cracked 300 subscribers yet. Brandon was the quiet, athletic type, always up for anything as long as it got him out of the house. And Tommy, well, Tommy was the thinker. His uncle ran cattle not far from Sundes Farm, and Tommy had grown up on stories that kids should have shrugged off by age 10, but never did. That Saturday morning, they packed snacks, cameras, and 3 bikes, rolling out just after sunrise to shoot some harmless country adventure content. "Welcome back to my channel," Mitchell said, panning the camera toward his own grinning face. "We're hitting up Sundes Meat Bank today. Place is legendary. Creepy old slaughterhouse with a vending machine full of expired sodas, and maybe, just maybe, we'll find a haunted sausage." Laughter from Brandon. Eye roll from Tommy. But Tommy wasn't laughing. He noticed something was off that day. He scanned the dusty fields as they pedaled closer. "Guys, we should return. I am telling you, everything seems quiet," he muttered, pressing on. "Last time we visited, this was a noisy place. Even the sun seems different." Mithcel and Brandon laughed off. Maybe they took the weekend off, or maybe Tommy is just in his overthinking mode. "Why so serious, Tommy?" "Come on, nothing's wrong," Mitchell offered. "No, I was here last Sunday," Tommy said. "Serious?" The gates were locked. The smokehouse was running. You could hear the workers all the way from Route 9. Still, the gates were open. The loading dock stood silent. A hand-painted sign above the doors, "Sundes Meat Bank, USDA approved," hung crooked, swaying in the wind like it too wanted to get away. Mitchell, always the documentarian, led the way in. His iPhone caught the interior in shaky 1080p, dim lights flickering, shelves of packaged meat laid down untouched, a register left unattended. No sign of staff. But there was this putrid smell lingered in the air. "Okay guys, stay connected as we explore," he said to the camera. "We're not thieves, but I'm putting $5 here for this Kit Kat bar because I need sugar for this investigation." Then, as they kept lingering around the place, they found a compartment, the industrial doors to the butchering hall. Wide open, a sick, raw scent hanging in the air like burning rotten meat. But to the kids, it was all adventure. Little did they know a few wrong steps ahead and destiny had sad plans for each of them. "I don't like this," Tommy said again. "Let's just poke in, please, just 2 minutes," Brandon said. The video caught the inside of the slaughterhouse. Meat hooks dangling like steel fangs, slabs of beef hanging like skinned torsos, blood pooled across the floor in drying black sheets. There was a massive walk-in cooler at the back. The door was open. "Guys, what are these footprints? It looks different, elongated Huma-like feet," Mitchell whispered. "Someone tore this place up." Then the camera turned sharply. A gutted bison on the floor. Next to it, human remains. Legs, a half-eaten torso, mangled skull with the jaw missing, face chewed to pulp. The footage shook. Brandon's voice. "Holy shit, that's a person." Tommy screamed. In the corner of the frame, some movement. The figure, then 2. They weren't men. Canine snouts, yellow eyes, matted fur slick with gore. Standing upright, 7, maybe 8 feet tall. One was gnawing on what looked like a hand. Another ripped meat from the bison's side with rows of needle-thin teeth. Tommy's voice. "Get down, run, run, run." The footage cut out. There was a scramble, screams. "Oh God, it's sauce." The video ended there. That iPhone, caked in blood and stink, was handed to me 2 days later. Found outside the treeline behind Sundes farm, half buried in dirt and pine needles. No sign of the boys. If you're listening to this, I'm the guy who got the call after their parents hit dead ends. I'm not a cop. I'm not a private eye. I hunt what most folks call superstition. And I can tell you right now, whatever got them wasn't just hungry. It was territorial. It was organized. And it had a name, Dogmen, encrypted classified files. We call it Code Red, the ones that leave mess behind, human, animal remains alike, with visible footprints. This is the case file of Sundes Meat Bank. 3 boys and 1 blood-stained iPhone that recorded screams and meat slaughter. And it was the worst Dogman incident Edgar had seen in 20 years. We received news about the incident from our organization. Well, technically Edgar did. I'm not officially enlisted. No badge, no rank, no early benefits. But the higher-ups know me by now. They've read the after-action reports. The vampire in El Paso with its teeth sunk into a propane worker's neck under that broken bridge off I-10. The skin crawler incident in southern Canada. Those disappearing scouts. That hollow-faced mimic screaming with my own voice as it bled silver under moonlight. I've earned a seat at their table, whether they want to admit it or not. Edgar got the report in the usual way, an A4 envelope sealed with wax and no return address. No USBs. No email. No trace. That's how you know it's serious. Paper means eyes only. Paper means it bleeds. He didn't even call. Just sent me a single text. 30 minutes. Come ASAP. Code Red. I knew what that meant. If you're new here and somehow missed the prelude to this mess, let me give you the SparkNotes version of my miserable introduction to all this. I was corporal in the United States Army, stationed out in the Nevada desert back in 2019. Regular patrols, bad coffee. Group chats filled with memes about commanding officers and theories about Area 51. Rick and I were chewing the fat during a break under the comms tower, talking about our college girlfriends. He thought he'd married up. I knew I'd narrowly avoided a lifetime of kale smoothies and passive aggression. Remember Jessica from freshman year? He said. The one who talked like Siri but could bench 160? She left me for a vegan yoga instructor named Phoenix. Spelled with an F. Phoenix or Fuckarella? I laughed. Should have known the apocalypse was starting right there. Then something grabbed Rick. No warning, neither any sound, sneaky as a top-notch sniper. Just a blur of muscle and fur, claws tearing through his vest like butter. His body twisted midair. He screamed to his lungs, just fucking screamed. Like his soul was being peeled. It bit down into his belly, and red sprayed across the sand like a damn art project. And then it dragged him with intestines mopping the desert floor, as gory as it could get. I was frozen, trigger finger locked. M16 in my hands, but my mind was gone. No boot camp prepares you to see your best friend's insides decorate the desert floor. That was my last day in uniform. The brass sent me home with a psych eval and a thank you for your service handshake. PTSD did the rest. Back in El Paso, I moved into my mama's house. She tried to fix me. Church, soul food, and matchmaking with every half-decent woman within 5 zip codes. Nothing worked. Not even Eve, the nurse with green eyes and trauma baggage empathy. That's when Dad reached out to Edgar. I thought he was just another psychiatrist. But he was ex-military, top-of-the-line paranormal hunter. Rumor was he'd killed a demon in Fallujah and kept its spine in a jar. The man had a secret basement that smelled like gunpowder and dead things. Bones hung like trophies. Skulls lined the shelves. I even saw a horned vampire skull with gold-plated fangs marked for auction in a secret society in Paris. Amidst dogmen skeletons, demon artifacts, Wendigo mess that was lined up in chambers, and that's where I knew this world is more of a mess than we already know. That was the beginning of my new life. So now, back to the present, where I am penning down my life as a cryptid hunter, old notes, messy handwriting for these to be old as fancy tales, or facts. This is for the public to decide. I am sitting in Edgar's den, a half-smoked Chester cigarette in my mouth, the ash barely clinging to the filter. My legs are kicked up on a cleaned lichen skull that hadn't found a buyer yet. The Drogo families, rich freaks of nature, may be lost in Tetist and Cryptids or gained new hobby in whatever Reddit's feeding them now. My Glock on the table, blades of silver and steel lined up across my messy compartment. Coming back to this incident, Edgar dropped the envelope in front of me like it owed him money. Sundes Meat Bank, he said. I raised an eyebrow. That's some kind of startup? Small town butcher place, Texas countryside. 3 kids went missing. 1 iPhone recovered. Covered in blood, smelled like death marinated in gasoline. And then we were, Edgar and I, discussing about the possibility of events. I picked up the photo inside the report. It showed the slaughterhouse floor, blood pools, hanging flesh, a half-eaten torso of what used to be a bison, and, far worse, human intestines draped like party streamers. In the corner, something blurry, canines, upright. Fucking dogmen bastards. He nodded. Multiple, unconfirmed numbers, all butchers gone, no witnesses except the clip on the iPhone. We played it again. Heichel fun, then boys laughing, then panic, then the screams, then that one line, etched into my skull now. Dogs standing on 2 feet, chewing on faces. I looked at Edgar. This gonna be like my Nevada encounter again? No, Nevada was the beginning. This is bigger and older. I sighed. So what now? He pulled out the duffel, grenades, C4 silver-jacketed rounds, blades, and beer traps. We leave in 2 hours, he said. Strapping onto my leather jacket, I looked at my reflection back in the wall mirror. Guess Texas barbecue's on the menu. Edgar rang his old flip phone, the one he only ever uses when it's time to dig bodies, not paperwork. He didn't say much, just a name, Clay, and then coordinates. Got it, you still breathe mean? Another beat, good, we'll be there before sundown. I sat on the other end of the room, loading silver rounds into a battered Beretta. Edgar clicked the phone shut and looked at me. Packlight, we're moving. The higher-ups had already taken care of the travel. That's one of the unspoken perks when you bleed for secret organizations that technically don't exist. Tickets that don't appear on commercial manifests. A black flight out of Albuquerque. No TSA, no boarding passes. Just a steely-eyed guy in desert camo asking for a code phrase. Mine was silver in daylight. He nodded and waved us through like we were ghosts. Our seats, not in first class, above it. A tiny, custom cabin behind the cockpit, lined with crates marked fragile in 5 languages, and a UV lamp bolted to the ceiling that buzzed every time we crossed into a different airspace. Edgar slept, I didn't. Something about the wind at 30,000 feet makes the mind wander, makes it itch. We landed just outside Lubbock, Texas, at an abandoned hangar that hadn't seen a legitimate flight since 1983. Our ride was waiting. A 1999 Ford Excursion, matte black, diesel, bulletproofed windows and tires that looked like they could crush bone without blinking. Edgar muttered, Clay's old ride, and tossed me the keys. The drive to Clay's house took just under 3 hours. Between the dead radio stations and dust storms, the road felt biblical. Like we were driving towards something ancient. You know, as a hunter, you start to pick up on the subtleties, the hush in the leaves, the shadows that flicker even when there's no wind. Like the very trees are trying to warn you. Turn back, not this time. There's an eerie poetry in how the countryside can look both innocent and malevolent at the same time. One side of the road would be all golden fields and tractor barns, the other, dark wood lines where nothing dared to move. You start to think about the thin line between God's creatures and what crawls in between. It's like heaven watches with soft hands while hell sharpens its knives in the shade. We pulled up to Clay's house, a two-story wooden home that looked like it had survived a few wars. The porch sagged but didn't complain. Barbed wire surrounded the property in a lazy loop, more decorative than defensive. His mailbox was a rusted ammo box, spray-painted with the word official. A dog greeted us first. Big, muscular, black coat with gray speckles. It stood still, studied me, then walked over and licked Edgar's hand like greeting an old general back from the front. Edgar gave it a pat. Still it remembers. Clay came out next. Late 60s, beard like white tumbleweed. His left eye was glass, the other sharp as broken glass. Said nothing, just jerked his head toward the porch. Inside, the house smelled like cigars and gun oil. Animal pelts on the floor. Shelves stacked with old maps, odd bones, even a mounted jaw that looked suspiciously not human. A single crucifix above the fireplace, its wood blackened by time. We didn't talk much. In our line of work, planning sounds more like Morse code than conversation. Edgar pulled out the report. Clay pointed at the map. Sundes Meat Bank, he growled. Been hearing things from that county for months. Screams in the grain silos. Something mangled a whole cow, left the meat but took the bones. Same MO as Utah, I said. Clay nodded. But this one's worse, pack behavior, territory marking. Edgar looked at me. Tonight we prep. Tomorrow we move. I unpacked our bags and laid out the gear. UV grenades, silver blade tomahawks, a scoped AR with runes etched into the barrel, and 2 vials of wolfsbane concentrate in a thermos-marked coffee. Just as Clay went to shut the front door, he paused. He stared outside. Not at anything specific. The dog stiffened next to him. You feel it, he muttered. Edgar nodded. Like something's holding its breath. Clay shut the door, double-locked it. I stood still, one hand on my Glock, the other brushing the wooden floor. The air had changed, like the house had become a lung, and something outside was inhaling. Clay whispered, almost to himself, "Something's gonna bleed." Clay's house wasn't just a house. It was a memory that refused to die. The walls had seen too much. You could feel it. The kind of house that breathes heavy when it rains, where the floorboards whisper when no one's walking. We were inside, the air thick with cigar smoke and the sharp tang of gun oil. Old maps curled at the corners lay scattered across the table, alongside a rusted coffee tin filled with silver rounds. We sat around a weathered oak table. Clay poured us a round of what he called Apocalypse Reserve, a home-brewed whiskey strong enough to dissolve doubt, and probably a few internal organs. Edgar tapped his glass to Clay's. Like old times, he said, voice low. Clay didn't smile, but the ghost of one crossed his face. Only the monsters change. I raised my glass too. Feels like a Predator team-up scene. All that's missing is the jungle. Clay chuckled darkly. Trust me, son. Texas brush is worse than any jungle. You just don't see what's hunting you. The drink hit like a brick wall in a velvet glove. Warmth spread through my chest. For the first time in days, my muscles eased. Clay leaned back, exhaled slow. You boys ever lose something that mattered more than breathing? We were silent. I stopped hunting after my wife died. Sir, 29 years married. She never complained about the long nights or blood-stained laundry. Then the cancer came. Ate her up faster than any skin crawler I ever faced. That was bad enough. But the kids? His voice cracked. He stared into his glass like it was a portal to the past. They got sick, Real sick. Doctors said it was a rare autoimmune thing. No cure. But I've always wondered, was it something I brought home? Some cursed spore from the Appalachian cave jobs? Some bite I didn't know I had? Something I was too proud to admit followed me back? He poured another round, but didn't drink it. I used to think I was a soldier in a secret war. Now I think I was just a damn fool with a loaded gun and no backup plan. Edgar didn't speak, just placed a hand on Clay's shoulder. Outside, the wind had changed. Clay froze. His hand shot up like a silent command. The dog, still lying by the fireplace, lifted its head and growled low. Not a warning, a confirmation. I didn't hear it at first. Just the creak of the house settling. But then something faint, like laughter trapped in fog. Then another, a third. And a fourth, all slightly different pitches, canine, close. Clay moved to the window, his eyes squinting into the darkness. "You hear that?" he whispered. Edgar nodded. "They're circling, testing distance." I tried to catch it. Nothing. Maybe the whiskey dulled my edges. Maybe I was just tired. Or maybe I didn't want to know what it felt like to hear that sound and recognize it from the scream that haunted my dreams. All I knew was that the fire suddenly didn't feel warm enough. "I don't like this," Clay muttered. "It's too early for them to show themselves. They're not supposed to approach until full dark. It's not even dusk yet." "Maybe something spooked them," Edgar offered. "Or maybe," Clay said, gripping the edge of the table, "they're just getting bolder." I stood up, tried to peer through the gaps in the wooden blinds, but saw nothing but rustling grass and the beginning of twilight. Still, I couldn't shake the sense that something was waiting, just out of view, just beyond logic. "I feel weird," I muttered, adjusting my holster. Edgar looked at my empty glass. "Maybe don't down Apocalypse Reserve like apple juice next time." Clay gave a hollow laugh, but there was no humor behind it. "I'm gonna prep the traps," he said. "If they're here, we need to know when they cross the line." We helped Clay unload an old chest from the hallway. Trip wires, silver-plated bear traps, motion sensors with red blinking lights. All wrapped in burlap like someone's grandmother used to pack explosives for family picnics. We moved methodically, like we'd done this 100 times. Because we had. Just not with the stakes this high. Not with the howls already on the wind. The sun dipped low, setting fire to the clouds. The woods beyond Clay's home blurred into an ocean of shadows. "You still can't hear it?" Edgar asked me. "No, I cannot," I admitted. "All I hear is silence." "That's worse," Clay said, closing the last latch on the window. "Because it means they're not warning you anymore." I looked out again, watching the wind comb through the field like fingers through hair. Clay's words looped in my brain. "Something's gonna bleed." The moon hung low like a judgmental eye, pale and indifferent. We parked 2 clicks out from the Sundes Meat Bank and made the rest of the trek on foot. Silence blanketed the world in thick folds. It was the kind of quiet that wasn't natural, like the air had forgotten how to carry sound. Clay led the way, shotgun slung low and heavy, moving like a shadow trained by the ghosts of his past. Edgar followed, cold and calculated, his AR-10 sweeping methodically. I trailed them, fingers brushing against the grip of my Beretta, more out of habit than threat. That was the thing about fear. It becomes a rhythm, a background hum you live with long enough, and it starts to sound like music. "I ever tell you this place used to be my drop zone?" Clay whispered, "back when I was stupid enough to think monsters had honor." I gave a soft smirk. "You're still here," he grunted. "But I'm also the last man left from my crew. Maybe that means something. Or maybe I was just the slowest to die." We reached the perimeter, a chain-link fence topped with rust and sagging warning signs that hadn't meant anything in years. Edgar cut it clean with bolt cutters. We slid in, breathing slow, weapons up. Inside the slaughterhouse grounds, the buildings slumped like corpses propped up to look busy. Clay raised a gloved hand and pointed toward a side entrance half obscured by ivy and thyme. "We go in quiet," he muttered. "No cowboy shit." As we stepped into the concrete underbelly of Sundes, the stench hit: raw meat, mildew, and something worse, something feral. "Holy Lord Jesus," I muttered. "It's like Rot married ammonia and had a kid." Clay chuckled. "That's the smell of a lair, kid. You never forget your first." We moved through a long hallway, its tile walls streaked in brown and red. Drag marks painted the floors in erratic trails, claw marks etched into the concrete like desperate graffiti. Edgar scanned with the UV light, bones lit up. So did pieces of scalp, a shredded denim jacket. Cold storage yawned open in front of us like the mouth of some industrial beast. We crept in, boots crunching on ice that had been trampled into grime. At the center was the nest, an abomination of fur, rags, limbs both human and not, and deep scratch patterns gouged into the steel walls. This wasn't just one dogman. This was a staging ground. A goddamn kennel of carnage. Clay crouched, brushing a femur lightly with his gloved fingers. More than one. I'd bet my last lung on it. From behind a rack of frozen meat, something moved. We heard it before we saw it, a wet, animal grunt, followed by the sharp clatter of a dislodged meat hook. Then it charged. A blur of fur and malice burst out, knocking racks over like bowling pins. I fired first, 2 shots to the torso. Edgar followed with a silver-tipped burst from his AR, hitting it square in the thigh. Clay stepped left and caught it in the shoulder with his 12 gauge. It screamed, more human than beast, but didn't fall. Instead, it vaulted through a side vent, blood smearing the wall. "Son of a bitch is fast," I said, chest heaving. "Faster than last year's Utah pack," Edgar confirmed. Clay stood, breathing steady. "But it bleeds, that's all we need." We regrouped outside the meat bank. A breeze cut through the brush, carrying that same foul stench on its back. Clay knelt, inspecting the crimson trail the wounded dogman left behind. "Northwest it led," he muttered, "toward the tree line, probably looping back to its den." Edgar launched the thermal drone, and the small machine buzzed into the night sky, its screen casting a faint blue glow over our faces. The monitor showed heavy heat signatures, more than 1, maybe 5. "They're circling," he said. "I don't like being the entertainment," Clay growled. We followed the trail into the woods. The deeper we went, the more distorted the world became. Sounds bent. Trees leaned wrong. It was like walking through a place that remembered pain. "Why are you still in this game?" Clay asked me as we trudged along the uneven trail. "Same reason as you, I guess," I said. "Something in me won't let me stop." He snorted. "You ain't built for this. You walk like your boots are new, you flinch at every squirrel fart, and you still carry pictures of your girl in your wallet." "You went through it too, didn't you?" I asked. "Started young, thought you were indestructible?" "Yeah, I started young," he said. "And then I buried young, friends, brothers, my sons, my Rachel. Took one bite at a time, till I was just a shell packed with muscle memory." I didn't reply. I just smiled a little. There was no real venom in his voice. Just armor made of regret. "You're a good kid," he said finally. "Too good, that'll get you killed faster than any monster." We reached a clearing, and Edgar stopped us cold. "Time for booby traps," he whispered. "Tripwires, pressure plates." Clay narrowed his eyes. "Not ours, someone else's handiwork." "Another team, is it?" I asked. "Maybe, or some asshole who thinks he's Van Helsing with a YouTube channel." Either way, the only thing that mattered was our purpose. We stepped carefully, dismantling what we could, marking the rest. 10 yards in, Clay crouched behind a broken log. "Sniper perch," he whispered. "Used recently, burn marks, silver shell casings. Whoever's out here, they know what they're hunting. But are they helping or screwing it up?" I asked. Clay's eyes scanned the tree line. That's the million-dollar question. Night fell like a guillotine. We made camp just off the trail, a natural bowl formation with dense tree cover. We laid out motion alarms, set infrared tripwires, and dug shallow trenches just in case. I volunteered for first watch. Around 1 a.m., the howling began. First one, then two, then four, different tones, different distances. A pack, intelligent, coordinated. Edgar rolled over and grabbed his rifle. "They're probing." Clay didn't even open his eyes. "Let them, I've got surprises too." Minutes later, the first trap triggered. A tripwire snapped, followed by an explosion that lit the forest like noon. Gunfire cracked, followed by howls. I turned just in time to see one dogman caught in the bear trap, howling in fury as Edgar put a round through its eye. Then a blur from behind. Another had circled around, pouncing from the ridge. Clay spun and fired mid-step, knocking it back, but it wasn't dead. It landed on me, claws raking across my vest. I smelled its breath, copper, rot, and rage. I jammed my Beretta into its ribs and fired 3 times. It whimpered, stumbled off, and vanished into the brush. Everything went quiet again, except my pulse pounding like tribal drums. Clay helped me up, hands strong despite the years. "Not bad, kid. You're still alive." "Barely." I smiled at him. "Told you I wasn't that green." He grunted. "Don't get cocky. That was a warm-up. It's a small specimen. 6 feet at the most. What lies ahead will shock you." Then he paused. "But maybe you got a little iron in you after all." And I swear, for just a flicker of a moment, there was pride in his voice. "These specimens are getting too bold. These are not typical dogman behavior. You would have to wait for weeks to catch a glimpse of these sneaky beasts. This is entirely different. Let's put an end to this, and I mean fast," Edgar shouted. The violent howls that followed shattered the silence like a bone snapping under pressure. We didn't even flinch. We were past fear now. After what we just saw in the cold guts of the Sundes Meat Bank, fear was a luxury. This was war. We had to take the matter seriously. This was full-out war. The time was 1:48 a.m. We had long waited for their return, and surprisingly, the clouds above gave its way to a full moon, and we need not say more. Full moons make these breeds the most violent. It is when they feed upon flesh the most. We sat on the ground outside the ruins of the slaughterhouse, backs against the rusted ford. Our ears still rang from the howls as we carefully waited. Edgar passed a flask around. "You boys earned this." It tasted like firewood and bad memories. Maybe rye, maybe turpentine, didn't matter. I took a long swig, let it burn down to the ache in my ribs. "You okay?" Clay asked, watching me quietly. He passed me a pill from his stash, ibuprofen, probably, or morphine, didn't care. I popped it, the pain faded a little. "This line of work," Clay added, "will gut you slow. You start young like you either grow to love it or rot in it." He didn't say it to be cruel. He was warning me. His voice had the rhythm of a man who'd seen too many die with silver in their hands. Then he pulled out his old satellite phone. "Gonna call the sheriff." Sheriff Greg Talbot arrived 20 minutes later, tires crunching on gravel as his dusty cruiser rolled to a stop by the treeline. He stepped out slow, the beam of his mag light swinging wide. A tall man, early 50s, hat tilted back, boots dirty. His deputy, Travis Klein, mid-20s and pale as unbaked dough, followed behind. "Clay, you old man?" the sheriff asked, already squinting. "Good to see you ain't dead," Clay replied. "Not so soon. You said this was about disappearances. You found something?" "Found everything," Edgar said, stepping forward, flipping a small silver badge from his coat. Not police, not federal, but it made the sheriff straighten anyway. We followed the sheriff to the station where we were introduced to the other deputies. The building was old, probably built in the 1950s. Wood-paneled walls with water damage. Fluorescent lights flickering like dying bugs. A bulletin board filled with missing person flyers, faded and curling at the corners. I counted at least a dozen, all recent. Mostly older folks. All from the outskirts. Talbot poured himself a cup of black sludge and leaned on the edge of his desk. "We've had weird reports all year. Dogs bigger than wolves. Farm animals ripped apart. People hearing growls at night. Thought it was just coyotes." Clay chuckled. "Unless coyotes walk on two legs and rip fence posts out of the ground, that theory's dead." Edgar pulled out his notepad and laid out the facts. "This is a Dogman pack. At least 4, maybe more. They're not native, they're migratory. Drawn here by the meat bank. Probably been trailing slaughter routes across the Midwest." Klein blinked. "You mean like werewolves?" "Not exactly werewolves," I said. "Werewolves are something else. This is different, worse." Edgar flipped a switch in his tone, cold, measured, authoritative. "Sheriff, listen carefully. This has to end tonight, or else this whole neighborhood or whatever left of it is going to rot." I sat at a desk near the window, spinning my Glock on the wood surface, the soft clack of the metal keeping time with the hum of the vending machine. The coffee machine had died long ago, replaced with a rust-colored kettle that whined on the hot plate. Clay took some pills and bandaged his side while sitting beneath a wall-mounted crucifix. Edgar stood by the door, staring through the blinds like a gargoyle carved out of anger and grief. The other deputies just watched. "Does this stuff happen a lot?" Klein asked nervously. Clay grunted. "Depends what you mean by a lot. You live long enough, you start realizing the world ain't made for human comfort. Things crawl in it. Old things born from curse. What do they want? Meat, fear, territory. Mostly they want to be. And we're in their way." Edgar turned. "All right, enough waiting. We need a plan." He drew a crude map on the whiteboard using a red marker. "We'll split 2 teams. That will make the hunt faster. Team A, Clay, me, Sheriff, and Deputy Klein. We take the east woods and loop north. That's where we flushed the wounded one. Team B, you and the rest," he pointed to me, "take the southern grid. Survey but stay on comms. If you spot anything, do what's necessary, track, report, fall back." Clay stared at me. "You sure he's ready?" Edgar nodded. "He's green but sharp. His instincts are solid." I just smiled, ignoring the sting in my chest. Clay was tough. Maybe tougher than Edgar. But I knew that tone. It wasn't doubt. It was fear disguised as mockery. Fatherly in a way or the other. We loaded up. The station's armory wasn't much. A few 12 gauges, some riot gear, flare guns, and an old M14 rifle with rust spots. But we took what we could. Outside, the fog had thickened. The town felt even emptier than it had hours ago. Streetlights buzzed overhead, illuminating nothing. Not even moths. I strapped on my vest, grabbed my flashlight, and clicked my earpiece. "South Side folks," I muttered. "Let's find hell." The moment Edgar's team disappeared down the southern slope, swallowed by pine shadows and dry gusts, I and the other deputies, Martin, Sykes, and that twitchy rookie Tyler, moved out with precision drilled into our bones. The moonlight was faint, like an old bulb flickering in a prison hallway. No house, Not even a damn cricket. That silence, the kind that makes your brain itch with anticipation, was worse than any scream. "You feel that?" I muttered, scanning the road. My voice barely crept above the crunch of gravel under boots. "What did you feel?" Martin asked from behind me, already glancing left and right with his shotgun half raised. The kind of silence that's just waiting to be broken. He grunted. Even Sykes, the usually chatty one, said nothing. I stopped, turned, and pulled open the small side pouch on my vest. "All right, boys, these are silver rounds." I handed 2 clips each to Martin and Sykes. "Won't do shit with regular ammo. Might as well be throwing rocks." Tyler scoffed. "Silver bullets? Really? What is this, an old Hammer film?" I didn't even blink. Just held his gaze. "You mock it now. When one of them's chewing on your spine like a ribeye, remember this moment." Still, I gave him the rounds. Even fools deserve a fighting chance. Tyler clicked the clip into his Glock but shook his head. "You all really believe in this cryptid crap? Dogmen, werewolves, wendigos? I mean, this is Texas, man. That shit's for movies and ghost tours." For a moment, I honestly considered stopping the mission just to slap the denial out of him. The nerve on this punk. We just spent a night bleeding in a thunderstorm of fur, fangs, and silver-laced fire, and here he was acting like it was a Scooby-Doo rerun. I stared at him, my jaw locked tight, but instead of punching his stupid face, I gave a wry smile. Sometimes, the world corrects people in more brutal ways than a fist ever could. I hadn't described what I was wearing before, so let me lay it out now. Beneath my windbreaker jacket was a steel and carbon fiber vest, the kind meant to hold under a bear swipe. It was dense but still allowed my shoulder to roll just enough to draw fast. A Glock holstered on the inner lining. Blades strapped flush to my ribs with shovel-like holsters for quick action. A Beretta in my right hand, loaded with silver-jacketed hollow points. On my hip, 2 silver shrapnel grenades. All of us took slow, meticulous steps now. The gravel road crunched beneath our boots like brittle bones. We moved toward the abandoned housing strip, old countryside homes, white picket fences now rotted and warped, front lawns more weeds than grass. These homes hadn't been lived in for years. But if the Dogmen were territorial, if they were using scent and memory, they'd find us. "Scan every window, door, and blind spot," I whispered, holding up my hand. "They'll sniff us before we spot them." We came to a house that still clung to beauty, barely. Red clay bricks, white latticework near the windows, a porch swing that creaked in the wind. The gate was already open. The kind of open that doesn't say, "Welcome," it says, "Forgotten." Tyler took the lead, stepping up toward the porch. He knocked twice, then called out, "Mr. Evans, Miss Evans?" "It's Deputy Tyler, just checking on an open gate and a few lights flickering. Don't take us for robbers or trouble. Just need confirmation you're okay." A few seconds passed. Then it came, a long, choking, muffled scream. "Help, help me." We froze. The sound came from inside, no question. I raised my hand, signaling the team to flank. I led from the front. Flashlight beams sliced the dark. The front door creaked open with one gentle push. The smell hit first. Blood, bile, and something unclean, something predatory. The chandelier above the entrance flickered, casting trembling shadows over a once cozy foyer. Floral wallpaper was ripped and stained. Furniture had been upturned. My fingers slipped onto the Beretta's trigger. And then there was him. Mr. Evans lay just beyond the carpeted entry, his back bent in an unnatural arc. His eyes fluttered open for a second before drooping shut. A soft, wet noise echoed from the hallway, slurping, chewing. Sykes retched beside the old man, 5 feet away if that. His wife. Or what was left of her. Torn from the waist up. half-dragged toward the stairs. I lifted the light. 2 shadows crouched in the corner, hunched over the bodies like sick dogs. 8 feet tall. Mangy black fur with patches of scaly, matted skin. Eyes that caught the light and returned it in hellish yellow. Tyler stammered, "What in the hell?" I fired in that split second. The silver hollow point smashed into the first one's chest, center mass. It screamed, dropped to all fours, and staggered backward. The second one lunged. Tyler didn't even scream. The dogman was on him before he could aim. Its jaws clamped around his neck and shook violently. Blood sprayed across the floral wallpaper like abstract art. Martin and Sykes opened fire, but the beast dragged Tyler's corpse back into the shadows with disturbing speed. "Holy fucking hell!" Martin shouted. I charged, followed the beast's blur with my flashlight and Beretta. I emptied half a clip toward the retreating monster, knowing damn well it might not even slow it down. Then I reached into my vest, pulled the silver shrapnel grenade, thumbed the pin. Timing had to be exact. I'd practiced this in simulations, 10 feet, for seconds. I counted 1, 2, 3. The beast was halfway up the stairs, Tyler's limp body still gripped by one arm. 3, I dove through the archway to the right. 4, the grenade detonated midair, bathing the gate in silver fire. Wood splintered, glass shattered, the floor shook beneath us. Smoke and dust choked the room. Deputy Rowell staggered back from the gate, nearly tripping over a brick paver as his boots skidded in the blood-muddied soil. His eyes were wide, glassy, like he'd seen a ghost, or worse. "That wasn't no damn bear," shouted Monroe, voice cracked and shaky. "Its head, what was wrong with its head? Was it split open?" Eyes were glowing like a car's high beams. "Is Tyler dead?" Another yelled. "Where was he taken?" They were all shouting at once, voices bouncing off the broken fences and the jagged hole the explosion left in the gate's iron skeleton. The air reeked of smoke, gunpowder, and blood. The night was thick again with silence, the kind that makes your ears feel too empty, like something should be howling but isn't. I didn't shout, didn't even flinch. I'd seen worse, maybe not worse in scale, but worse in chaos. You don't flinch when you're trained to live in chaos. You breathe through it. You shoot through it, you survive. But the others? This was their baptism by fire. One of them dropped to his knees and dry-heaved in the blood-specked grass. That thing, it wasn't real. We're dreaming. This is some kind of fucking MK Ultra mass hallucination. "Shut it, kid," I snapped, my voice cold and clipped. "That's not a nightmare. That's not a prank. That was a dogman, and Tyler's probably still alive if his guts aren't on the damn roof yet. We don't freeze now." They turned to me stunned. Eyes wide, breath sharp. "Is this what you all do in the academy now? Cry at monsters? You saw it bite Tyler's neck out and drag him like a rag doll, and now you're losing your shit. What the hell are we supposed to do?" "Shoot it, damn it," I growled. "Shoot for the chest. If it's too fast, aim where it's going to be, not where it was. And for Christ's sake, silver, silver only." I tossed them more silver rounds from my vest. "Load up or go home, and probably die halfway down the road. Pick one." The blast from my earlier grenade had torn apart the gate's right side, with splinters mixed with chunks of meat, both human and not. The smell was unmistakable. You've smelled blood before, maybe at a butcher's, but this was different. Burnt iron, scorched fat, copper tang on your tongue, it was primal. I swept my torch across the ground, the beam slicing through the mess. The grass was torn, shredded like it had been sliced with a mower blade, only faster, angrier. Deep gashes in the dirt where claws raked, footprints, huge and misshapen, like some grotesque parody of a wolf's hind leg. Chunks of Tyler's uniform were scattered like shredded paper. A piece of his watchband hung from a barbed wire fence. And where the gate didn't open, there was a trail, a horrible, obvious trail, of his body being dragged over it. No effort to carry, just pure brute force. Over sharp iron, through the splinters. It was how a wild animal drags prey back to the den. Not out of hunger, out of possession instinct. One of them puked again behind me. "Pull it together," I barked. "You cry now, we lose more." I felt the weight of the moment, not because I doubted my aim, but because I knew what kind of damage just one of these bastards could do. We hadn't killed either of the two, that explosion. At best, it pissed them off. Blood on the gate wasn't enough. They weren't dead. They were regrouping. I could feel it in my spine. "Don't check the bodies," I said, seeing Roy inching toward the house again. "They're dead. The old couple's gone. You want to mourn, do it after we kill what did this. But what if? No what ifs. We follow the trail." We regrouped and reloaded. I flicked the torch forward, scanning the footprints. 3, 4. Massive paws with deep claws digging into the dirt. Blood smears alongside, likely Tyler's. Could have been Dogmen. At this point, I wasn't sure if it mattered. The trail led through the fence line and into the woods running alongside Farm Road 3069, a back road stretch cutting through thick patches of oak and mesquite, Texas brushland at its roughest. Barely anyone drove it past midnight, and if they did, they didn't stop. Tonight it was our path to hell. We walked single file. My Beretta was drawn, silver rounds locked in. The torchlight flickered on the dirt like a nervous heartbeat. The deputies followed, still shaken, still mumbling. "This ain't right," one whispered. "None of this right. I signed up for meth labs and drunk drivers, not this demonic, whatever the hell this is." "You think this is demonic?" I smirked just a little. "Buddy, you ain't even seen a skin crawler yet." The phone crackled. A sound I'd heard 1,000 times, but this one carved a pit in my stomach. It was Edgar. His voice came through the static like a ghost fighting for air, shaky, blood-choked. "Bitten off clean, left hand's gone," he wheezed. "Sheriff and the deputy dead. Clay and I were holed up in one of the cold chambers in the back of Sundes Meat Bank, had to break the lock from inside just to keep them out. Fuckers are everywhere. Dogmen, Christ, there's too many. Come now, or the cold kills us first, or the goddamn things break in. We need the explosives. Don't screw this up." Classic Edgar, that same graveyard humor even with a missing limb. Then click, the line dropped dead. I turned to the deputies, adrenaline already boiling. "Edgar and Clay are trapped, rest dead. That meat house? It's a bloodbath. We need to move now." Their faces turned pale, moonlight brushing their skin like frost. It was a full moon, after all. Why the pack was so damn rabid. I remembered the pages of the Reaper file, that thick black binder filled with observations. Lunar cycles, feeding habits, territorial patterns. One thing was consistent. During the full moon, dogmen didn't just hunt, they slaughtered. We sprinted through the skeletal remains of old backroads, busted through the lock of a parked Ford F-250 abandoned just beyond the tree line. I yanked open the glove box, found a spare key, lucky, or maybe fate had grown teeth. I threw the explosives into the back seat like a Marine prepping for Fallujah. The charge cases clicked shut with the finality of a war drum. We were going full heat meets aliens. I punched the gas, and we tore down Route 665, past the dead wheat fields and ghost lights flickering in the distance. No music, no headlights. Just the crunch of tires and the frantic thump of hearts. In that silence, I could feel it, like the ghosts of the missing, whispering from the dark. People had died here. Tyler. Christ, Tyler. Just as Sundes' slaughterhouse reared up like a tombstone on the side of the blacktop, we saw him. Tyler's corpse lay splayed beside the chain-link fence. Neck ripped out like a pulled pork sandwich, bones shattered and poking through meat that looked boiled, not chewed. His shirt was shredded, pants halfway off like he tried to run. One arm extended toward the road, fingers broken, reaching for something he never got to. Nobody spoke. I parked 200 yards away. We went on foot. No headlights. I gave each deputy a silver clip. Though I was running out of ammo, for that brief moment I felt all our lives are valuable. Eyes, yellow light, shoot in that direction, no hesitation. Don't aim for legs. Don't wait for them to roar. If it looks like a nightmare, kill it. The smell hit us first. It always did. Worse than rot. Worse than death. It was raw. Wet fur and spoiled meat and bile, all wrapped in sulfur and hatred. My nostrils burned. So did my throat. The gate was open. Not kicked in, opened. As if they invited us. We walked through slowly, Beretta in my hand, Glock on my chest rig. Beneath my jacket was a carbon fiber vest, edged with steel plating. Strapped tight. Blades rigged at my sides like a cursed gunslinger. I looked back at the deputies. Watch the sides. One covers our back. I take point. The smell got worse inside. Each step forward was like descending into the mouth of something ancient. The howls started low. Like mourning. Like a man whose vocal cords had been stretched by claws and fed to wolves. I raised my hand for silence. Somewhere inside, Edgar and Clay were freezing to death. We crept past the first row of hanging carcasses. The metal racks groaned as we moved beneath them. Blood still dripped. Deputy Ramsey whispered behind me, breath shaky. You think they left us a trap? Probably it's a yes, I muttered. Which means they think we're dumb enough to walk right in. Let's disappoint them. I spotted a side passage. Freezer doors hung open, their insides lit with blue LEDs that flickered like lightning bugs in a morgue. The walls were claw-marked, scratched down to the insulation. Blood smeared in lines, like something had been dragged in panic. One of the deputies gasped. I turned fast, ready to shoot. He'd stepped into a puddle, marrow, mixed with bile, footprints in it. Move, move, I hissed. Edgar said refrigeration chamber. Yes, the east wing. Let's go. We jogged, slow and deliberate. Footfalls barely more than whispers. Then the first sound. It came from inside the walk-in meat vault ahead. I recognized that voice. They're breaking in. Edgar yelled. 4 of them, maybe 5. Clay's out of ammo. I'm down to 1 arm and a goddamn toothpick. I tapped the C4 charges on my vest. Form up ASAP, I ordered. Once we breach, I need covering fire. Don't look for targets, just follow my lead. I moved forward. The chamber door was chained shut from the outside now. Edgar had done that. But the chain was bending. Something massive was ramming the other side. I pulled a mini charge, slapped it against the lock. 5 seconds. We took cover. The chain blew clean off. Inside, darkness, smoke, cold mist. I fired first, 2 rounds. Hit one in the chest, not dead. It screeched and leapt up the steel shelves like a spider on meth. Clay, Edgar, move. I shouted. Back corner. Edgar's voice. Jesus, they're climbing the fucking walls. Flashlights cut through smoke. I caught sight of Clay, blood down his chest, firing his last round. Edgar, pale, left hand gone, brandishing a broken bone like a dagger. A Dogman dropped from the ceiling. Ramsey shot it once, Missed the vitals. One thing struck my mind. In the heat of that encounter, Sundes Meat Slaughterhouse burning with the stench of rotting flesh and the echo of shotgun blasts and howls that refused to fade, it was this moment, buried in chaos and blood, where the answer came crashing into me like the buttstock of a rifle to the jaw. This was it. The turning point. The moment I stopped surviving and started hunting. Not just surviving the night, but finally choosing to become the damn thing nightmares fear. There was no more hiding behind training or memory or some vague mission statement Edgar fed me. I had to kill all of them. Right here. Right now. One or two of these dogmen weren't enough. We had them all boxed inside this godforsaken butcher's paradise, and what better opportunity than this to burn them out from the inside and reduce this meat dungeon to fucking ashes. I shouted over the roar of gunfire and tearing flesh, "Monroe! Cover me, you bastard! Take this Beretta, you're on suppress. I'm rigging the whole place to blow." Monroe, with blood on his face and panic barely held back in his eyes, nodded hard and caught the Beretta midair. "You got it. But hurry the hell up." Clay and Edgar were somewhere deeper inside, exchanging fire with dogmen in the loading section near the back coolers. Muffled shouts and distorted howls made it impossible to tell who was alive, who was down, and who was about to get eaten. We moved in. Me with my Glock in one hand, C4S, wires, remote pins, and 2 fragmentation grenades rigged with silver shrapnel stuffed in my vest. Monroe swept behind me, shots barking loud through the dark like punctuation marks in a war story that refused to end. These bastards were all after us. I felt the air shift like a pressure wave. Monroe must have sensed it too. He spun and fired without hesitation, the Beretta clapping against the darkness. A growl cut short into a gurgle. "I think I dropped one," he barked, panting. "You think? Put a fucking silver one in its skull just to make sure next time." I spotted the central load-bearing pillar. Fat steel trunk welded to an older concrete structure. Beside it, the adjacent bracing beam, where rust and meat fat had long turned the surface a blackish bronze. It was the core, the lungs of the building. "This is it," I muttered, kneeling and slapping a pair of C4 blocks onto the seam where the pillar met the base. I shouted over my shoulder to the other whosoever was alive. "Get to the goddamn exit. I'm blowing this shit sky high." Somewhere back there, bullets cracked. Then Edgar's voice, ragged and distant, echoed through the reverb of the freezer. "Do it fast. We might not make it. There's too many of them." There were screams too. One of the deputies, maybe the last one, let out a howl that ended in a wet, bone-snapping crunch. Goddamn. We didn't have minutes. We had seconds. Monroe laid suppressing fire as I ran to the second beam, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Sweat blurred my vision and every shadow looked like a claw. I rigged the second charge and synced the wires to the detonator remote. Flicked the safety cap off with my thumb and muttered a little prayer to nobody in particular. The whole place was alive. The howls multiplied, layered over each other, like an orchestra of hell. And the smell was the smell. Like wet fur, spoiled meat, sulfur, and death shoved into a smoker and left to rot. My flashlight flickered. The moon outside punched through the blood-smeared ventilation window above us, its pale light at war with the torch beams. Every corner felt like a shadow was about to leap from it. Monroe took a deep breath. "We getting out of here, right?" I stared at him. My face must have answered it better than any words. We passed the stacked meat hooks, some still swinging with the motion of struggle. We burst out of the chamber and into the open lot behind the main building. Edgar and Clay were already there, faces pale, panting. Edgar, his arm wrapped in shredded gauze that barely held. We raised our guns and kept shooting. Anything that moved behind that steel doorway got a bullet or a slug of silver. My Glock spat fire with all the reloads of silver ammo. Clay let out a roar as he dropped another magazine into his rifle, and Edgar used his one good arm to steady a sawed-off, firing blindly but fiercely. It was war. Demons against men. Hell against whatever dignity was left in us. The door behind us shook. Dogmen pounded from within. I looked at Edgar. He nodded, barely. I squeezed the trigger on the remote. The explosion didn't just rock the slaughterhouse. It split it open like a fucking hellmouth. Fire erupted from the base of the structure, flaming up through the roof vents, shattering the upper beams and launching chunks of meat and bone into the night sky. The pillars gave out, and like a slow-motion earthquake, the entire front half of the slaughterhouse caved inward with a mechanical groan. Then followed the screams. A symphony of burning monsters. We ran like our fucking lives depended on it. Ash and smoke chased us out into the field. The moon above was bleeding through the haze. The ground trembled under our feet. We dove behind a busted pickup truck 60 yards away as the secondary explosion popped the internal gas line. Fireballs danced like devils through the air, and from inside that structure, we could still hear the sounds of death. Screams of agony, howls of horror, something burning alive, many somethings. Did we get them? Monroe choked, coughing smoke. I didn't answer. I didn't know. The fire roared, and the slaughterhouse groaned again, collapsing into itself with the final breath of a dying beast. We waited, guns raised, breath held, but nothing came crawling out. Nothing. Not a single dogman. Edgar sat down hard. Clay followed, leaning his head back against a tree trunk and letting out a long, broken sigh. The deputy was coughing up blood, but he was alive. The four of us stood there, frozen in the aftermath. Flames clawed the night sky, flickering shadows across the blacktop and surrounding brush. The meat house, once a slaughterhouse for animals, now a graveyard for monsters, roared behind us in its final gasp of destruction. But for the first time in what felt like hours, the howls had gone silent. Edgar, breathing like he'd just wrestled the devil himself, pulled out a crushed pack of Marlboros from his jacket pocket. His one remaining hand trembled as he lit up, the cigarette's orange tip flaring in the wind. His entire left arm was gone, torn clean off in the madness inside, but the old bastard stood tall, wrapped in torn fabric of every color like a veteran who just walked out of a medieval war. Got another one? I asked him, voice hoarse from smoke and adrenaline. He looked over, smirked, and handed me one with his teeth. Still got enough life in me to kill every last one of those fuckers if they ever come back. Clay stood beside us, barely a word spoken, covered in blood, dirt, and God knows what else. He looked like something out of a Predator movie, chiseled, gritty, eyes still scanning the treeline like he didn't trust the silence. I don't think any of us did. And then there was the deputy, the same guy who had once doubted everything. Now he stood with us, hands still shaking slightly, but firm. Courage doesn't always roar. It sometimes just refuses to sit down and die. After Tyler was killed, ripped apart in front of us like a rag doll, I thought this guy would break. But he didn't. He held the line. He gunned down two of those bastards with the kind of precision that comes from something deeper than training. Revenge, maybe, or grief weaponized. We didn't speak much. There wasn't anything left to say. We knew we'd done something bigger than ourselves, something no one would ever know the real story about. The official report said 25 were dead, including the kids. A freak accident, some said. Animal attacks, others claimed. The higher-ups wiped it all clean. sanitized the truth like bleach on bloodstains. And us? We were ghosts in the paperwork. Just shadows that happened to be there when it all went wrong. Edgar turned to me. "Texas dogmen," he muttered, staring into the fire. "They were here in the 1800s. Took down whole towns. We stopped them tonight, but this thing ain't done. It'll rise again. We'll be back. Someday." I nodded. My bones ached, my soul heavier than it had ever been. But I understood what he meant. Edgar gave Clay a solid hug. No words exchanged, just that deep silence of two warriors saying goodbye, not forever, but for now. "You're one mean son of a bitch," Edgar said finally. "Next time, bring a bigger gun." Clay grinned. "Next time, bring 2 arms." We laughed, even though it hurt to. And just like that, we turned toward El Paso, the fire fading behind us. Weeks passed, life, somehow, stumbled forward. Edgar got fitted with a prosthetic arm, sleek, custom forged by the higher-ups. Silver blade retractable from the forearm. The first time I saw him with it, I couldn't help but smirk. "Looks good on you, old man." "Fuck off, keep it business, kid, not the time for a good ending," Edgar grinned. After the reports were buried and the dead buried deeper, I took a break, a real break. Packed my bag, switched off my phone, and disappeared into some slice of normal life. Ocean breeze, unfamiliar faces, no blood, no monsters, just a couple weeks pretending I was something else, someone else. But I knew I'd come back. We always come back. Because the monsters are real. Because people die when we don't act. Because this world, our world, is uglier than most can imagine. And someone has to be the one to light the match when the shadows crawl back out. If you liked today's episode, please show us some love and do support the channel. We shall be back soon with another hunt. Thank you very much.